Look, you've got the ideas, you've got the ambition, but every time you think about taking that leap, starting your business or chasing that dream and passion you have, you freeze. You ask yourself, what if it fails? What will people think? What if I get judged? What if I'm just not ready? Every single person who I've interviewed on my podcast, even me myself, have gone through that phase of self-doubt. And what I realized was that hesitation is costing you more than you realize. Because whilst I was stuck overthinking, someone else is already moving ahead. It took me 3 years before I recorded my first episode, just because of self-doubt and fear of judgment. And I wish I had this episode to give me a wake-up call. Because in today's episode, I have Yvonne Liao, who didn't wait for perfect timing. She left her home country. She started from zero in a new industry and built a brand that thrives on bold decisions. And her story will show you how to break through fear, why asking for help, yes, asking for help changes everything, and what it really takes to start when the odds feel stacked against you. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Stop letting that self doubt and fear of judgment stop you. Hit play now, because the longer you wait, the longer you stall, the further behind you fall. Join me in today's episode of the Starting Story podcast. Let's start. Let's start. Yvonne, thank you so much for coming on to the Starting Story podcast with me today. Full of energy, full of excitement. I can't wait for today's episode. It's all about change, how to navigate change, how to get through those difficult times in our life, and get through in a way that we can stay true to ourselves and discover something new, right? So, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited. This is my first podcast interview, so just bear with me on we're going to talk about many things, but thank you for having me.
Yes, we were just talking before. We almost started the whole podcast before, not gonna lie. So don't worry about the if it's your first one, I hope I can represent the podcasting community well, and it doesn't put you off podcast forever. That's my
No,
only promise to you.
you are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Yvonne, just so our guests know um, who you are, what you do, and why you're the perfect person to talk about change. What are the changes that have happened in your life?
So, everybody, good morning wherever you are. So, my name is Yvonne, and I am based in the United States. I designed and create fun, vibrant, and comfortable shoes for the urban fashionistas. Um, so, why am I the best person to talk about change? Well, I long before I was based here in New York, starting my own shoe business. I was born and raised in Singapore, and growing up in an Asian society, I went through, what my parents have in mind for me as meeting all the expectations of like going to college, getting good grades, getting a good job. Um, but along the journey of meeting societal expectations, I didn't feel happy where I was. I love where I was living, Singapore's a great country to live in. I'm very blessed to be given a lot of privilege as a woman and, just growing up in a wonderful country. I just didn't feel fulfilled deep down inside. Something was missing. So I feel
Mm,
like, you know, coming back, um, that sense of dissatisfaction with my life at that point in time got me to really thinking about what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I made a really drastic change to leave the country and come to the United States to further my studies in fashion, which is something that I was really passionate about. And
mm,
yeah, so that was the big change. When you are in your 20s, your late 20s, when people are thinking about marriage, thinking about, having kids, thinking about settling down, and thinking about really big, going up the ladder in career, because obviously at that point in time, you already finished college, you are already starting in your career a couple of years, you're thinking. And it was at this point that I decided to just leave everything behind and come here alone on my own. So big
Gosh.
change, but it was a very rewarding journey after 14 years. Yeah.
Wow. What a massive journey that is, just to at a young age to decide to change your country. It's so far away as well. It's not even a neighboring country. Singapore to US is a huge journey. How come you chose the US?
So I have to say that like a series of big decisions in my life really are just serendipitous, I think, encounters. I was
Okay.
learning how to make clothes, like sewing. I was taking sewing classes. And for a while, I have a classmate who has already been sewing for a very long time. And
Mm,
she wanted to study abroad. And she was telling me about this school called Savannah College of Art and Design, based in Savannah, Georgia. And studying abroad at that point in time, I did not know was that expensive. You know, studying in the
mm,
States or abroad, wherever you are, like college tuition fees, um, and then also accommodation, and the fact
yeah.
that you are not a United States citizen, it's a lot of money because you won't have all the tuition aid or whatever not that probably an American citizen would have. But she
Mm,
was telling me, everything that she has done. She was saying, all this school has really good reputation, offering a lot of scholarships to foreigners, and just she did her research. So at that point, I was also in the process of looking for schools to further my studies in fashion. So I decided to take a leap of faith. She was like, why don't you just follow in my footsteps and follow what I did to apply for college? And I did. And it so happened that at that point in time, I had a long lost classmate who I haven't met for a long time. He decided to change to become from an attorney to become a school teacher. And
okay.
he helped me draft the whole process of like the application process, like writing, letters to like why I should be accepted to the school and so forth. So yeah, so it was really I think it was a stroke of luck, faith, whatever that you had it, that got me along that path. And then I just followed in her footsteps and
Mm.
I got into the school. Yeah.
So kind of an out of the blue opportunity appeared, and you were like, you know what, let's just take it and see
Yes,
where it
it
gets me.
really did.
And
Yes.
so you hadn't considered moving abroad by that point before that.
Not really. Um, because I just thought that, like, that's an interesting question, to be honest, because I haven't really thought about like whether I had thought about leaving. But no, I don't think so. At that point in time, coming back to thinking about it, I haven't really thought about leaving Singapore because
Mm.
I've not done that before. And everyone is in Singapore. I don't have like friends overseas. I travel a
Yeah,
lot, but it's really just for like recreational purposes. I never ever like leave for prolonged periods of time. So yeah. So but I did
I
get
see.
in and they did gave me really generous like scholarship grants. So I decided to take it. Yeah.
I see. All right. So, how does someone at that age in Singapore, how did you process the notion that, first of all, you applied? And of course, when you apply, it is a big step, but it's not as big of a step as getting the application and realizing, well, now I have a decision to make. Do I, Yvonne, the young Yvonne, do I decide to move on and change country now that I've got the application in my hands? I have the opportunity, right? What were you like? How did you process that? Weigh up the factors.
I I just feel like it was that gut feeling of doing it. Like it was very it was a very mixed emotions, I guess. Like what you
Yeah,
say, like applying is one thing, and then like you're like, oh, so it's the waiting process. I'm not sure whether I get it, but when I remember when the actual DHL package arrived at home, and I saw that I was accepted. I had an acceptance letter. It was nicely done in a folder and
wow.
all the information about what I need to do as an international student. It was surreal. It took a moment to process the fact that like, wow, I got accepted and this is what I'm getting. Um, but I feel like looking back, it's something that I really wanted to do it. Yeah, there was
Mm.
no, I was already kind of preparing myself for it. I was saving up the money. I was, doing the classes, like doing illustration classes, doing sewing classes. And when this opportunity really landed and I was accepted, it was like scary, but I was like, let's just do it. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
But not to say that
you're
it's
talking
not
to me.
scary. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, of course it's of course it's scary, but like you said, it's a gut feeling, and you knew that what is the worst that could happen. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because in our meeting before, you also talked about that phrase, "What's the worst that can happen?" which I think is a really powerful phrase, because it gets you out of the knots where you feel like everyone is looking at you, and all the bad things in the world are going to happen to you only. Which, as much as people can try to deny, it is a true case. Like for me with the podcast, before I started my first episode, I waited about 2 years before I did my first episode. 'Cause I kept thinking, "Oh, what if people think I'm just not interesting? What if people think that what he talks about is so boring, and they just make fun of me?" And then you have to remind yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I'm not gonna lose my life, or what's the worst that can happen? And for you, of course, you got the scholarship, so financially, to some extent, you were uh, compensated. So it was really a case of, am I going to take the opportunity that's in my hands? This package has arrived, and then just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? I then come back to Singapore and continue my life that I would have done here, right? And continue my passion for fashion or something else. What does that phrase mean to you? What's the worst that can happen?
I have to credit my sister really, number one, for reminding, like giving me this advice, because I remember before coming to the States, when I was packing and when I was preparing for the trip, obviously I felt sick because it was just so much stress going on.
Mm,
She did come into my room one day and she's like, you know what? So she's the one who told me this, like, so what's the worst that could happen if you leave and you do this?
yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like with that, it's actually a very liberating statement to give to advice to give to other people, because you think about doomsday kind of scenario, you think a lot about like what could possibly happen, but then when somebody guide you and ask you that question again, you are like focusing and be like, okay, so really what's the worst that could happen, right? Like I
Mm,
could go there in a month and be like really not like it and be like, okay, I would just come back and forget about the whole thing. But at least you are already further from where you started. You left the country or you did something new, and you gave that yourself that opportunity, that to say that I tried. At least I tried. And then you could go back and be like, okay, it's almost like giving yourself the permission with that sentence of like, what's the worst that could
mm,
happen? You give yourself that permission to be like, let's go try it. Think of rationally all the scenarios that could happen, and then you come to realize that actually it's not as bad as what you think it is, right? So for me, probably the worst thing that could happen is I don't like it. I run out of money, because to be really honest with you, I didn't save up for everything. It was just like I have enough for this period of time, and then we will see how it goes. Like
we'll
I'll
figure it
just fake
out.
it until
Yeah.
I make it. Yeah, yeah. So I feel like that is
Yeah.
a very
Okay.
strong,
I
powerful
agree.
sentence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the liberating feel, and it just almost pushes you, because usually when, for example, for me or for other people, I actually had an episode recording on this where you feel like you know the right thing to do, but you just can't do it because you're afraid of something, or there's a barrier. But more often than not, the barrier is in our own mind. And of course, if
Yes.
the story was different, Yvonne, and you said, "Oh, I didn't have the money to go abroad, so I chose not to," that is understandable. It's a large thought of money to take on. That's fully understandable. But once the money to some extent is solved, the barrier is now just in your mind, whether you're going to do it or not. And I do agree
Yep.
that sentence is really good at kind of blocking it, getting rid of the barrier and being like, right, well, what is the worst that can happen? Just go for it. And it's something that you can continue no matter what phase in life you are, whatever problem you're facing. We're all facing some kind of problem. You can use it to help you. When you came into the US and you started learning, I mean, now you're doing a shoe business, but to help me understand, did you know you were going to do something to do with shoes, or was it just clothes and fashion you were just interested in, and then later on the shoe business idea came on?
I think it was a later stage. I've always loved shoes, but for a
Okay,
long
nice.
time, I love wearing them. I love to buy them and wear them more than the designing aspect of it or the business aspect of it. So,
Mm,
yeah, like I know that coming to New York, leaving after I graduated, I know that I wanted to work in the fashion industry. But it wasn't until a bit late, a few years working in New York, that I pivot or I feel like shoes would be what I would like to do for a long time. Yeah, because I was working in the fashion industry and I felt like it's a great place to be in. Like a lot of brands are based here, but again, the companies that I work for, it feels very much like they were churning products season after season just for the sake of
right.
doing that. Like, so it would be like, oh, now it's spring or now it's fall. And then, like we have to come up with this collections and like choose, out of 100 pieces that we have, choose like 20, choose 30, and let's sell it. And then like let's to repeat this season, let repeat this formula again and again. No doubt it gave me a very good like grounding as to how the industry worked, because coming from Singapore when I was a school teacher, working with students, working with teachers and principals, to coming to New York where it's working with like creatives and like business
Mhm.
people, totally different mindset and how they run things. But it felt a little bit meaning, like it felt like again that something was missing again. Like I felt kind of like people were going through the motion. And despite New York being a fashion capital, we are very well known for loving to wear black color stuff. So you go
Ah, yes.
everywhere, it's very black. Everybody's obviously, when you are always on the go, you are running after trains and buses, you want comfortable shoes. But I was also very bored by the fact that people are just wearing like black sneakers or like white sneakers or like plain black shoes. So it got me kind of like thinking, like I could create something that's fun, colorful, because that's what I love, and also just being intentional about what I create, not just like because season wise or because market wise demands it, that therefore I'm creating season after season products that doesn't resonate with me. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's what got me to really thinking about like shoes as my focus. Yep.
Yes, so it's that mixture of being in New York, seeing clearly people need a change of taste, see something different, wear something different, but then also that deeper passion of you like to wear shoes, you like the way they feel, only the way they make you look. Um, and they always say, don't they, follow your passion. And even if you can't follow your passion, if you can try and integrate it into your work, then it means it feels less like work because you remind yourself that this is something I enjoy every day, anyways.
Yet. Yet. You need to kind of, yeah. Even if you can't, I always think of like pivoting. You can't do maybe what you love like 100% all at one go. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important to be like, what is the next best step for me? If I want to get from A to B, I can't do it now 100%. So then what is the next, 1 degree turn that I could do to make sure that I'm moving in the right direction? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's really nice. And so when you moved forward with your shoe business, what were the first stages like? I feel like with business and with this podcast, the whole point is the first stages, the first step is the most difficult because you have the least knowledge of the industry or the business, you have the least network connections, and you probably have the least money as well because you've not made the business yet. What was that first stage like then?
It was a lot of researching. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So for me, it was a lot of researching and just experimenting. I It was many years of like refining an idea, like so in the beginning it was just more like, oh, I love shoes. I think I have this idea that I could start. And so I
Mm.
started researching on learning more about it. I went online to see if there are people offering shoemaking classes or something, anything about shoes that I could like learn a little bit more. And so I started with going to a class on how to take shoe measurements or like learning how, shoes are made and just the
Mm.
basics. And then one class led to a next class of learning how to make a simple pair of like mules. And then it became like a 3 day class of learning how to make stilettos. And then it became like, okay, so now I learned how shoes are made. I have an idea. And now I have design. So it became a one-to-one personal private class with the instructor on making my designs into reality. And
Yeah.
also on the side, after learning the craft aside, it's also about like, okay, I'm very lucky that because I work in the fashion industry, I have a knowledge of how it works, like the process of like designing, production, and selling. So just based on that experience that I had, I started also researching on like partners or factories that I think I could work with. Yeah, so it's just a lot of that in the first place, and also just saving up the money for the capital along the way.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so it was just a lot of researching, and then you come to understand like, okay, is this what like do this is what you like? It is not what you like. Sourcing. Do you like it in Italy? Like, is it too expensive? So yeah, so it's a process. Once you start with that, it's a learning process, and then it will guide you along the way as to the next steps of what to take. So that's yeah for me.
Nice. And one thing I'm noticing in what you're saying is you had times where you kind of reached out to other people for help. So whether that be in a multi-person class or whether that's one-to-one, I think that's quite interesting and important to know because for younger people, we can be more averse to asking for help. Maybe because of AI, you just feel like ChatGPT can answer everything nowadays, or you just don't want to feel like you're going to pitch this idea and someone's going to push it down and say, well, this idea is useless. Why'd you even come to me and pitch it, right? But one thing I've noticed more and more as I've been going through the podcast is asking people for help, or even if not for the help, just trying to network. And what I mean by network is just build relationship. I don't
Yep.
mean network in the sense of like corporate networking. I mean more like just talking to people, going to places, even name dropping your podcast or specifying how you could help someone else. I think rather than just keeping the whole problem and the whole journey on your own, if you can involve other people to help you or to talk things through, I think it makes it more sustainable. So I was wondering if you could give a little bit of an insight into what your journey has been, because otherwise starting a shoe business is quite difficult. You know, there's big leaders in the market.
Yeah.
You would think that how are you possibly going to inject this business in? But throughout this process, you've been in groups and classes. How's that been for you?
I totally 100% agree with you on like learning from others and also just having that mindset of like lifelong learning, like
Mm,
growing. Um, Everyone needs help at some point in life. So like for me, like it has been really awesome because from wearing shoes to like learning how they are made is a very different it has been a huge learning curve for me. It started
mm,
off with like me not knowing how the different pieces of shoes come together to like, okay, now I learn how to make them and what material will work to like being able to do them at home on my own. So yeah, so it has been that whole part of like learning from others. It has been really wonderful journey for me and asking for help, not afraid of asking
mm.
sometimes because like what you say, one person you only know so much, right?
Yeah.
But I had a phrase from somebody, I might not be 100% correct, but it's like my girlfriend like to say, like if you want to go fast you go alone, you want to go far you go with other people, you
Yeah,
share with other people, you
I've heard that as
collaborate.
well.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like in this process I do learn a lot from others. I learned a lot about like what works and what not work. And I think for someone to be in business, to start one, you have to have that mindset. of like
Yeah, of
learning to ask
course.
for help and learning that, like you may not have all the answers, but then like that willingness to go out and just say that like it's okay, I don't know, then I go and try, and then I will I will again coming back, I will know more about what I like or not like, or what work or does not work. But if you
Mhm.
don't, if you just stay there and you don't do anything, then nothing will ever happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and business is naturally collaborative, so you kind of
Yep.
have to get yourself involved. One of the sentences you mentioned in our meeting before was asking is free, which again is one of those things which it
That's
sounds so obvious, but again, you have to remind yourself sometimes. You can sort of
yes.
build yourself up. You let's say you're trying to ask someone out for a speaking engagement, or you're trying to enter this network that you've not been before, or you see that there's a couple of people in a group chat, even like simple things like even a group chat that people talk to and you want to get involved, and you feel like, oh, should I reach out, what if they just ignore me, what if you keep pushing yourself down. But then you remind yourself asking is free, like it's not going to affect me anything, it's free in all ways. And
Yes.
if I don't ask, the answer is always no. If I do ask, then the answer is only slightly going to be no, and most likely it's going to be a yes. So which one are you going to take?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I like that phase. Yeah, that's something that I always tell my mom. Like, she will be like, "Oh, I don't want to call somebody because it's like, almost sounds like I'm complaining, but it's like you have to ask, right? And if you don't ask, you don't get." Just like recently, I've always wanted to do a project about, making it an event about shopping and wellness for women. And
Mm,
I never got around to doing it just because time passes so quickly. But
yeah.
you're amazed by how much women do want to come and help one another and collaborate. So just by asking people and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this idea? Would you like to join in?" And they were like, "Yeah, I'm more than happy." And now I have a group chat. I have a group meeting that is scheduled like in the middle of December for women coming together and see what we can do for next year. I think it's great. You have to ask. You really do. Yeah, because
Yeah, you
otherwise
don't
you
know
wouldn't
what
know.
opportunity lies behind the door of asking.
Yeah. Asking and showing up, I think, are very important things. Yeah. Sometimes you
Mm,
just have to really, even if you might not feel like it, you have to show up at places, and you never know what doors open for you, really, when you show up at the right
mm,
time or talk to the right person, and that will open another door for you. Yeah. Or close it,
yeah,
because it might not be the best time or best opportunity, and then you move on to something else. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
true. And like you talk about meeting other people, you're telling me about how in the last week you have been meeting new people and kind of seen a frame shift in the way you think of your business and customers in general. Do you want to talk me through a little bit of what that was?
Yeah. So prior to, obviously, like, I sell products, but all of us, I think, at some point or another probably had the imposter syndrome. I think especially women.
Mm,
Recently, I've been hearing a lot about conversations about, women are doing so much, but we are still afraid of owning that space and showing up and be like, "Hey, I did all these wonderful things," and we are still playing small.
mm.
Um, so recently, like, just going up for sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Yeah, no, it was
Sorry,
very open.
I got
Don't
too
worry.
like caught up.
It's so exciting that she's forgotten what she wanted to
I'm
say.
so sorry.
No, it's okay. The question's very open. It was just what happened in the last week and why did it change the way you think about your business?
Yes. Okay. So I've always equate networking with women and getting along with other women as selling my product.
Hmm.
I've always been a bit hesitant in selling my products, even though I know that they are good products. I see them through the whole process myself because I have that kind of imposter syndrome where I feel I'm not good enough. But when I went for this event recently, like, this lady, she totally changed my mindset. And she was telling me, like, actually, to sell is to serve. You're serving other people at the highest level. Like, you are thinking of ways in which you could show up for your potential customers at the highest level, being able to help them solve a problem, whatever problems they may have in their life. Whether you are a business coach, whether you are a podcaster like interviewing other people. So it gave me a very big mindset shift Because so she's always saying like now, so she's like, if you're hesitant about selling, instead of saying like selling, think about like how can I serve my customers? How can I
Mm,
serve my customers the best that they could possibly deliver the best results for them? Yeah. And with that, then it doesn't feel like you are selling. It feels like you're serving them and helping them solve their problems. And so for me, it's
yeah.
more like it's solving the problem of like painful feet, finding comfortable shoes for women that they can feel, still comfortable, confident, and stylish at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I was saying, it's about changing the way you view it as kind of your product and them as a customer rather than changing it to it's their product and you're just there to provide it to them.
Yep. Yep.
Because that way you can start to see it from their eyes and put yourself in their shoes quite literally and think what would they want to see in the shoe? What would they want to see feature wise, quality wise, design wise? How can I make that possible?
And it's interesting that you say that to think in their shoes because a lot of times, so that's another thing, interesting thing that I learned. A lot of times we go, like when we introduce ourselves and our products, we tend to like introduce ourselves first, like, oh, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. But to sell and serve your customers well, actually, it's more in the beginning of really listening to them and their problems before you introduce yourself. Yeah, so
Mm,
being in their shoes, exactly what you say, being wearing their hats or being in their shoes first, think about for a moment like what their problems are, what their issues are, what they're facing, like every day in their lives. Then that's where you understand where their pain points and that's how you can serve them better. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yep.
true.
Yep.
And it's so easy to forget that part of it. And
Yes.
it links to any kind of business doing. It links to my podcast. I have to make sure I'm making episodes, getting guests on, discussing topics that are relevant to the people that are listening, not just I find interesting or I think won't be interesting, because there will definitely be something that I don't find that interesting, but is really topical and relevant, and I should discuss it.
Yep.
So it's about putting yourself in that shoes, and it's similar to when you said before you started your business, you were researching a lot, right, about
Yes.
materials and manufacturing techniques and suppliers and stuff like that. But then another part of research is what is my target market looking for, so I can make sure I can give something that they were looking for in the first place. Otherwise, you end up, like you said, creating something that isn't intentional. You, especially if you're doing a product rather than software, you actually end up spending money on stock, inventory, materials, and not selling it because you never actually found out what they might be interested in. And that's where, obviously, that's where the slippery slope starts, or starting to doubt yourself and really thinking, was it worth beginning or not? When
Yep.
actually, if you would have just started making it more intentional, owning it, then you could have hit more success if you started from the beginning like that.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with you on that because in the beginning, that research part was also in pretty important
Mm,
in part of my research. I first started wanting to do high heel shoes for women because I had the assumption that all women love high heels, they love uncomfortable shoes, no matter whether their feet is painful or not, because that's just me, right?
mm,
But eventually my idea evolved over the years and it was very helpful through just asking simple questions among my friends and other women. So I did a survey of maybe close to 50 women, asking them questions through like forms, and it turned out like it was such a good lesson learned because they were listing things that I never thought about in the shoes before. Here I am thinking that, oh my God, women love high heels, like they want to wear high heels all day, and then turns out that, the three things that they were looking for in shoes were number one, comfort,
yeah.
style, and also the materials. So that kind of like pivot my way into like thinking, oh my God, like so women doesn't they love heels, but they don't want to wear them every day.
Mm,
So if I'm going to serve women at their highest level, then I got to meet them where their pain points are. And so that
yeah.
got me to thinking of like pivoting and refining my idea and my collection to something that is more wearable and that relates to the everyday woman who wants to just wear a pair of shoes from day to night. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look back from the way you think, how has that changed from before you even, let's say, even from Singapore, the way you thought then to the way you think now? How do you view yourself through those years?
Wow. That's a very deep question. Um, how do I view myself after 14 years starting this journey? I feel like the last 14 years, whoa, I feel like all these lessons are really good stepping stones in making the person to who I am now. If you were, I had to take these lessons to become who I am now. Because if you were to tell me and say that, hey, like Yvonne, you were in your late 20s and like you had all these ideas and say, oh, go start it now. I think my lessons would be a lot more painful and it would have gotten me a lot more frustrations at that point in time when I was younger because I had not gone overseas. I have not learned how to live on my own. I have not learned how to navigate like all these different challenges of like, um, yeah, just moving from place to place, learning how to get a new job, learning the whole different system of like living culturally, interacting with other people to now. So I feel like for me, it has been a journey of like just learning and becoming a better business person, better person in general. Yeah.
Yvonne,
That's
it's lovely to have you back onto the Started Story podcast. We had a little bit of disruption in the middle, but we'll continue as if nothing happened. And the question I was asking you before, which I'd love if you could kind of continue with the answer, was we just talked about your life and your story and what you've learned in the process. It's been such a moving story of, you know, taking that leap into a country so far away from your home country, going into a career that isn't always clear cut. You know, fashion, it doesn't have the same kind of pathway as medicine, for example. So you really are gone in at the deep end there, going to a different country, different language, different culture, learning yourself on the way up, pursuing your passion. And now you're 14 years ahead with a business under your name. But if you were to look back at the Yvonne that is 14 years younger, who's new in the deep end, doesn't know how to swim, what words of advice might you give her to maybe handle the situation she's in currently?
I think I would tell my younger self to feel the fear and go ahead anyway. I I mean I made a lot of progress or at least I feel like I've learned a lot over the last 14 years. But I think if I were to go back now and tell my younger version of myself, 14 years younger, I would have told her to not fear so much and
Hmm.
just leap. I think fear of a lot of things, right? Like fear of, I think the biggest thing is just stop the noise, like stop fearing what others think of you. Stop asking for, permission or like to to do what you think is right. Stop fearing
Hmm.
others people's judgment of you, like what they think of you, and don't let that stop you from doing what you think you want to do or what you are passionate about. Yeah, that's what I would tell my younger self. Yep.
All right. So would you say the main thing you were scared of was the main thing that kind of stopped you in a way was the fear, and that fear, like a lot of people who might be listening to this, that fear is sometimes created by ourselves. And I've been through it. um, I'm currently going through it. You've been going through it, and potentially again is like a current thing. It's nothing you really escape from. It's something you live with. And it's that fear of, what might happen tomorrow. If you're running a business, it's the fear of what could happen tomorrow, money wise or employee wise. There's so many things that we don't really have control of. And I think when you're younger, you don't have that experience, you feel like the whole world is looking at you and coming for you. It can be difficult to take action into what you think is right, especially, like I said, in a creative industry like for me, the podcast, or for you going into fashion, where there's no clear cut direction. It can be difficult to know, should I do this? Should I take this step? Is it the right thing? What if this all backfires? What if other people look at me in this way? What if people don't listen to my podcast? What if people don't buy my product? It's difficult, and it's not something you can gloss over the difficulty. But how might someone be able to tackle that fear, rather than just saying, uh live with the fear? What could they actually do to be able to live with it more comfortably rather than letting it control them?
For me, I think it's just taking an action. Like for me, when
Hmm.
I wanted to do shoes, instinctively or at that point in time in my life, I was like, okay, I love shoes, I love wearing them, and but now I would really love to make them. So
Yeah.
what would be a logical starting point for me to make them or learn more about it? And because of that question, it guided me into finding out like courses online. And then eventually I found a studio in Brooklyn who teaches people how to make shoes. So I think fear is something that everybody grapples with every day. I still have that. But I
Hmm.
think when you have an action, like when you take an action, then in this case, it propels you forward. Like no matter how small the action could be, it could be just reaching out to somebody whom you already like. Maybe it's a coworker, or maybe it's a mentor that you know from a long time. Even if you are in school and you still keep in contact with your professor,
Hmm.
I that would the first step could be, reaching out to them and say that, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z. Do you have any recommendations, or what do you think I should do next? And they could offer you some advice. And in fact, that was one of the things I did. I did reach out to my professor, whom I still kept in contact as well, other than learning shoemaking, to ask her like, do you have somebody who has already been through this journey and I could talk to, so that I could better understand what it takes to start my own business. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it
So
goes back to what you said before, right? About asking is free. Just
yes.
reaching out to people, it doesn't cost you anything, but you never know what you could get out from it. And I've been
Yes.
slowly grappling with this as well. I think I used to, like, even the podcast. To be honest, people around me know that for the first 6 months of it, I kept it quite a hidden thing, and it's just down to that fear, right? You feel like the fear of judgment, or the fear of people going, "Oh, what's this new thing?" So you feel like, "Oh, let me build something, and I'll let people know." And then I let people know, and you realize that it's either encouragement, or actually a lot of people don't actually pay attention, and you're
Mm,
like, oh really? Like you almost think you're the center of attention until you realize you're not. And that's it's almost like a blessing and a curse at the same time. But for me, it was like I realized, a, there's not anywhere near as many haters as you would think there are, and
yes.
b, it means that you can continue exploring and experimenting and doing what you want without that feeling of judgment or people keeping an eye on you. Everyone's got a busy life, they're all focusing on
Yeah.
their own thing.
Yes.
And so that's why asking is free. Just going
Yes.
out and reaching out. And like I said, I've been going to networking events, and I've been going to places where you get those connections, and you find a place. So, for example, last week itself, actually, it was this week. Now I think about it, where I went to an event and they were teaching people how to use Canva. Now, Canva is something that I was using on my own and trying to figure this out. And I was just like, I am not a graphic designer. I've never claimed to be a graphic designer, but I need to do this kind of stuff for the podcast. So I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure it out on my own. But obviously, ChatGPT and YouTube tutorials only get you so far. And suddenly
Mm-hmm.
I'm at this event and they're teaching how to use Canva, and every single person on the table, there's like six of us, every single person's got Canva open. They all know what they're doing. And I'm like, whoa, these people know what they're doing. I can ask them questions. They know how to do this, access their brand and make these portfolios. I was like, wow, there's literally one person there who does like social media management for 8 companies. I was like, oh my God, this is
Wow.
exactly what I need. So
Wow.
if I wouldn't have asked to like join that event, if I wouldn't have gone out there, I would never have met these people. And now I can ask them questions if I need to, because I know they use it.
Yep.
So it's clearly a part of learning, and it's something about just putting yourself out there and getting uncomfortable,
Yes.
getting comfortable with being a little bit out of your comfort zone,
Yep.
and seeing it as a growth opportunity. And this is
Yep.
like I think it's a very topical subject. A lot of people nowadays, especially who've gone like online courses or online kind of advice, it does say this kind of thing, or like take action now, do something today. If not today, then when? That kind of logic, right?
Yep.
Did you have that kind of thing back then, or was this all you had to kind of figure out on your own?
You mean like advice where like people
Yeah,
dispense on
yeah. Because
social
nowadays everyone
media?
has social media.
I I don't think at that point 14 years, I mean 14 years ago, like, Facebook really just started. I really only started
Mm,
using like Instagram when it was like 2012. So it wasn't so much of an explosion whereby online where you're able to access so much information about like people trying to
Yeah.
help you. I do have books that I remember buying a lot of self-help books, and I still have them. I probably don't have the entire collection right now, but I remember moving and I do bring them every now and then when I go back to Singapore once a year. When I still have my book
Mm.
collection, I would take a few with me that I feel like would help me in the long run, and I bring them to the States with me. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so at that point, it was a lot of more like books. Like I was reading a lot, like, Who Moved My Cheese, or other, at that point in time, a lot of, I don't know whether now it's still popular. Um, is it that Campbell soup, chicken soup for the soul? Have you heard of that series
Oh,
before?
I've no, not heard of it, no.
Yeah, so it's a whole. I think the movement for self help like really started. I mean, obviously it went many years ago, but then at that point in time, a lot of books were like, there was this series. It's called like Chicken Soup for the Soul, and
Mm.
it was a chicken soup for the soul for kids, for teenagers, and all kinds of like stories in which it's like thematic, and then it's a book where there you read like all about different like short stories of how people overcome challenges. Yeah, so
Oh,
that
okay.
was big. And then yeah, so it was more like self-help books, I guess, at that point, rather than like social,
Mm.
turning to social media and getting advice from like Instagram and a lot of all these other female entrepreneurs online. Yeah.
Mm. So nowadays, now you're probably busier, Yvonne, with managing a business, managing something a bit bigger, a bit more hectic. How do you keep yourself and your wellness intact?
I run every day if I can.
Okay.
I started running when I was 15 or 16 as a way to keep fit and just, lose a bit of weight. And that has become part of my habit ever since. So I've been running for over 20, 25 years now. So
Wow.
I try to start the day every day. I wake up earlier and I run like, I don't run long distances. I mean, I do biathlons when I was younger, but now it's just more of like a habit to keep me grounded. So I wake up
Mm.
earlier. I run with my dog. Thank God he's a good runner. So I take like 20 minutes, half an hour to run every day in the morning. Getting into the exercise really keeps me like just more like calm and collected throughout the whole day. And then yeah, coffee keeps me sane. Um, Having a routine, I think just a morning routine for me, like waking up, being able to just have a cup of coffee and get a little bit more like calm in the morning where everything is still quiet, that 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and then you run and then you get into that momentum. I think that helps me a lot. And now as I get
Mm.
older, I also tend to like meditation a lot, to just like get myself. I would just listen to YouTube videos, close my eyes for that, 10, 20 minutes, and just get myself into, deep breathing, listening to like a lot of just positive reinforcement kind of like video that combines meditation, manifesting, and everything, so that it sets me for a good mood for the day, to
Mm.
continue what I need to do. Yeah.
I see. So
Yep.
that's quite a good mix. I think I'm gonna go for a run actually this evening.
Good.
So that's quite nice. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to
Running
get more into
always,
running. I've been,
yeah.
I've go
Running
to
always
gym,
keeps me.
but gym,
Uh-huh.
yeah, gym doesn't do the same thing for me. Like gym's good for muscle gain and stuff, but
Yep.
I need to run every once in a while. To be honest, quite embarrassingly, I'm always running for public transport because I somehow, no matter how early I wake up, I'm always late for the bus or the train. But I don't think that counts. I still need to do some more long distance running where it's more in control rather than sweating with a backpack on trying to catch the next train. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do enjoy a run. It's quite fun.
I do that too. I do that too every other morning when the bus is like just, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it's nice to see that even like I like to ask that question because it shows and it grounds me and other people into thinking that life doesn't just suddenly solve itself when you have something successful behind your name. Um, every single person I ask, no matter what level of business they're in, and some people on the podcast still don't have a business. Everyone has some way to keep yourself sane, because otherwise, I feel like for example, um when I was starting the podcast, I used to think that if I have a certain number of episodes, everything would just solve itself, and I'll just become
Mm.
like nothing will affect me anymore. But then you realize that's not true. There's always a new problem cropping up, so you have to have that way to de-stress yourself. And everyone has different ways. Some people say art, you say running, I play badminton, and whatever works for you.
Yep.
And it's just a good thing to know. So
Yep.
in terms of your business now, Yvonne, what are your next steps now from where you have it right now? Like, where's your business right now in terms of your own analysis of it, and where do you want to take it further?
So this year was I wow. I never really I think December for me now, like having this business for I truly really only started like I would say like last year, like late last year. So this is
Mm,
really like the first year where I really like run the whole like business from, selling and everything.
mm,
This year has been a very big learning curve. I'm trying to spend the
mm,
next few weeks before the year end to just sit down and reflect. I think this year was really a great year for me. I established a lot of good like um relationships, I think, with like shop owners. I
yeah.
Yeah, I have gone out there and really network myself. So I feel like there are women whom, I can reach out to. I belong to groups where I could always ask for help. I think next this year it's all about that learning part, and then after that consolidating like what works, what didn't work, and then after that next year to bring that lesson with me and then expand a bit further. Like, yeah,
Mm.
does it answer? I hope that answer your question. Of
Yeah. So
yeah,
you've kind of this is your first year where you've done the whole year trading in a
yeah,
sense,
yeah.
and of course
Okay,
you've
yeah,
learned this year. If I asked you in another year's time, you'd say, "Oh, I've learned even more this year," and it's always a learning curve.
yeah,
And when it comes to these kind of connections you've made with other shop owners or the things you've learned,
yeah.
what are you focusing on? For are you focusing on, for example, for a shoe business? Obviously, I don't know it fully, but are you focusing on getting more products or expanding it or attracting more customers? What kind of thing is going to be your aim, maybe?
Next year would be expanding. Number one, will be expanding my product assortment. So now I have a
Nice.
couple of different shoes under my belt. I know what's my best seller. So I'm in the
Yeah.
process of working with my factory to develop two more styles. At the end of the
Wow.
day, I think I had said earlier, like, I started the shoe business because I didn't want it to be like kind of like other shoe brands where they are just churning out style after style, season after season,
Mm,
just for the sake of like having that new collection. Um,
yeah.
so now this year, like I started and I see the reaction. I know that like what like my women want in terms of like my shoe collection. So, and I also know like now that I have my collection, I show it to my friends and I got their feedback. I want to improve further. Like my
Mm,
insole, that is a little bit, I want it to be more cushioned so that women can feel even more comfortable. And then I'm doing like two more styles, which I know that like these are styles that women, they have already feedback to me that they love it and I would want to develop them and bring it to market. I would I think now with the economy that's, a little bit haywire and like just if people in
mm,
general are not like, people for me, moving forward, I would really love to be more personable to people. I feel like for me, going to working with smaller boutiques, offering a more personable, more customizable experience is what would help me in the long run as a shoe
I
owner.
see.
So, for example, instead, like going for like little pop up sessions with boutiques. rather than
Yeah.
doing like a mass market where like holiday market where everybody goes, or just doing white glove service. I find that I enjoy the process of, like I would have women who order my shoes and they live in New York City, and I would just bring the shoes to them in person. I enjoy that service, bringing it to their house, bringing it to their office, and then they try it, and they pay for it on the spot, or before that they will pay for it. I think that's the way to go for my brand.
Yeah.
Because yeah, because at the end of the day, I shoes for me, it's more than just shoes. I love it when I interact with the women. I want to know, like,
Mm.
I want to see their reaction. You will know whether the woman actually love your shoes just from their expression. They wear it, you could
Mhm.
see that joy lit up on their face, and that's what gives me a lot of joy. I love the interaction one to one with women where they tell me about their stories. Like how they come to be where they are, just like how we are having this conversation right now. Because at the end of the day, like for me, shoes, they reflect a person's journey, like a woman's journey. um some people, some women, I've talked to them, some quite a lot of other women whom, like they will be able to tell me that, oh, I have this pair of shoes that I still keep. I don't wear them anymore, but they remind me of a memory that they have, or growing up
Yeah.
with their mom. This is the kind of shoes that they like to wear, or a religious ceremony that they wore a pair of white shoes with them, even though it didn't fit them at that point in time, but they wore it because it's important for them. It serves as part of a memory. So for me,
Mm.
moving forward as a small business, offering that customizable service for my customers, having meaningful product assortment that grow but then fit that woman's lifestyle, the woman that I designed for, and serving them is very important to me. Yeah, building that relationship like one on one, rather than just selling you the shoes and be like, hey, like this is it. Makes more sense for me and more meaningful for me and my business. Yeah,
Wow. That's really moving actually. It shows your care behind it because it's so different to what the big shoe companies are doing. It kind of
yeah,
answers my follow-up question, which is going to be how are you different to the big shoe companies because they are competitors, but you're clearly giving this more customized boutique feel where the shoe itself has so much more value than just something people put on their foot to walk. It has like
yeah,
the memories associated behind it, the comfort, the the relief someone could get by wearing your shoe, the pleasure they could have of someone else seeing them wear it. All
yeah,
these emotions that come from just an item of clothing, um, it can it's not something to be glossed over, and it's something that the big brands do. It's something that storytelling. If you go to any big fashion brand, that's what they'll do. They could have a really good dress, but they won't just say, "Oh, buy this red dress for £700." They'll say, "This red dress would make you look perfect in a day, attract people, or that kind of
yeah,
thing." Or this red dress might make you look um, really nice when you're in a club, or these jeans will give you that classic look. Or if you're a man, they might say this makes you look more masculine. Like getting the emotion out of someone is going to lead to the sale more. But even if we're not focusing on sales, because I feel like sales makes everything sound transactional, even if you're not focusing on sales, getting the emotion out of it will make that person make you more memorable. It'll make you as a company, make you, Yvonne, more memorable, as in like how many people have the Nike CEO coming to deliver their shoes, but hey, if you buy from Yvonne, then Yvonne might actually come and deliver your shoes for you, let you test them, which is a
yeah,
really nice service. It's something that's overlooked, and it clearly shows your kind of passion and actual deep understanding of shoes. You told me from the very beginning of the episode that you always liked shoes, you always liked to be in them, and you liked how they made you feel. And it's like we've come full circle where you want other people to almost get that feeling out of it. You don't want other people to get kind of sheeped into what these big brands are selling. You want them to experience what you experienced, as in this is a shoe that's made for you, and we want you to fully experience it rather than just wear it to work and not really treat it the same way. That's that's a really nice way to put it, Yvonne. I've never seen shoes this way. So thank you for changing my view, I suppose, on a shoe, really, on how it makes someone feel.
I think to also just add on, like coming to full circle, right? I I told you in the beginning where like in the like now sales to me it's like it's more like a service. So you're serving a
Mm,
customer. So
yeah,
and and the thing about shoes is that unlike a piece of clothing or a bag, it has to fit that person. You would not be
that's true.
comfortable if you have a pair of shoes. You have the experience before, I'm sure, like of buying a pair of shoes where it's either too big or too small, and
Yeah,
when you wear it, it's really uncomfortable. So I feel like for me, like having that personal kind of touch where I could deliver the shoes to a person, it's to service or to serve that customer right to the highest level, where like we need to be in their shoes, right? Like to wear them and then they see it, they love it, then they will buy from you. So yeah,
yeah,
so it's for me it's a service that I gladly undertake, because at the end of the day I want my customers to be happy with what they are wearing. There is no point in
yeah.
selling a pair of shoes and then they are not happy with it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And another really good point is for someone like you who wants to collect feedback and wants to be able to provide the best possible shoe, if you're
yeah,
delivering it by hand to this person, then you can ask them directly, what do you think of this? How do you like this design? Do you like this color? Do you like the
yep,
comfort of the insoles? How does it fit on your feet? These kind of questions, if if you were to just sell them online and then send it as a feedback form, how many people are actually going to fill it out? And if they do fill it out, how much are actually going to give the honest answers? And even if you do get honest answers, you're not ever going to be able to tell their facial expressions, or you're not going to be able to tell when they wore the shoe
yep,
what was the first thing they felt, right? But if they
yep,
do it in front of you, then you get all of those kind of non-verbal and non-written cues to let you know what do they like about the shoe, what do they not like. And then it's
yep,
all going to give you a big repertoire of information to take along with you, so that when you are designing your new shoes, your new portfolios, you can try to iterate those things and make a better product and a better product every time, which is so
yep,
important. Feedback is such a big part of anything. If you want to improve it, you need to get that customer feedback. And like you said, now that you've had that kind of revelation that rather than seeing sales as kind of like a me give product, you give money kind of way, seeing it
yep,
more as like a me solves your problem and you reimburse me for that. It's like
yep,
it sounds quite simple, and like we were talking before, Yvonne, sometimes advice can be so simple, but it can still be so kind of mind changing, and it can change the way you think of things. And I think that's another way of how something so simple like sales is not just about the product, it's about the experience, the emotions, the
yes,
way someone's
yes,
got to your product, how what kind of problem you're solving for them, and what kind of relief you're giving them.
yep,
When you view sales in that way, no matter what product or service you're doing, then it changes the game really, and you start focusing more from the customer's point of view rather than your bank account's point of view, which is quite interesting. So
yeah,
I like
and
that you're
even
sharing how you're trying to put that in.
yeah, and if like what I learned from this salesperson who is a sales coach, she's saying that like even if you don't make that sale, but you go in with the attitude of how can I serve this person at the highest level, and you
Mm,
do that, even if you don't make that sale at the end, at least you feel like, okay, I have done my best at this point in time to like try to serve this customer. It may not be a good match at
mm.
the end, but you go out feeling like I've done something. I try my best. I've done something great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you, Yvonne, for sharing all of that. I feel like we had a really good deep dive in the episode. And
Thank you.
like even when we had a pre-episode, however, like a month or whatever long ago it was, if you can remember
Yeah.
that, all I knew is that you had a shoe business in the US and that you'd moved away from Singapore, and that was approximately it. And even from there, I was sold. I was like, I need to have her on the podcast. But
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you were. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to talk more about not only the practicalities, the physicalities of what it actually is like to move away, and getting a job off what's it called, university offer, moving away, taking that leap to across the world, deciding to start from the ground up into an industry which has no set direction, and then building something for yourself, which is a massive achievement. But then I'm
Thank you.
glad you're able to really share some of those deeper parts, which is, how do you handle that fear of rejection or that fear of judgment or self doubt, especially when the walls we build are by ourselves. We build the walls that contain us, unfortunately. How do you break through
Yes.
that? And how do you view sales in a way that it's more more beautiful than just a transaction, and
Yep.
there's more factors involved than just the money. And if you can view it in that way, which you said you hadn't for a long time until you went on that meeting just before we had a previous
Yep.
recording, and you
Yep.
said you that person spoke to you and you're like, bingo, I never thought about it this way, but now I can, and now I can start seeing things differently. And that's what it
Yes.
is. It just shows that no matter what stage you're in, and for someone listening, like no matter what stage you're in, there's always going to be learning. There's no right time to start than now. You can't let
Yep.
fear judge you. You can't let fear stop you. You can just start today, because even if you start today, you'll still be learning. Even if you started a year ago, you would still be learning today. There's no such
Yep.
thing as you have it all figured out. And as you said, Yvonne, even at the level where you are right now, which is much more successful than lots of people that could be listening, and lots of people who want to start a business, you still need to have ways to de-stress. You need to have ways to keep learning, to educate yourself, and
Yep.
finding fun in not having it all sorted out is, I think, what business and life is all about. Really, yeah, you can't let it stress you out. So I'm glad you're able to encompass that in your
Thank you.
journey. And like you said, some of the things I asked you, you hadn't ever considered before. So I'm glad I was
Yeah.
able to ask some introspective questions that got you thinking as well, because then we got some genuine answers out.
Yes. Yes. You got me some difficult questions, Krishna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I got you thinking as well.
I got
I'm
me. You got
glad
me
to hear
thinking. Yes. Yes, which is
that.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. And Yvonne, like, obviously you only started your business like a year ago or 2 years ago, like very seriously. And again, I'd love to have you on in the future, so even in a year's time, if I have you on
Yeah.
again, or 6 months time, and seeing what's going on. You said you're planning on scaling it, you're planning on doing more boutique kind of personalized things, getting new
Yes.
products in, which sounds really interesting. I'd love to talk
Yes.
to you again about how you've kind of progressed further, and what you've learned again.
I would love to do that, and I'll be able to look back at the old podcast and be like, "Wow, like
Yeah,
yeah,
you'll be a
like
better
their
podcaster then. You'll
improvements."
be better than me at that point.
Oh no, we all have to learn, right? Yeah, we all have to learn every day. There are always new things to learn. Like really, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think the most important thing is to never stop learning. In Singapore,
Mm,
where I come from, where it's very competitive, just to end it all, I remember growing up, and there's this phase, not really a phase, but that culture of always lifelong learning. That's what
mm,
we were always grown up to embrace. So
yeah,
I think because I grew up in that kind of culture, so it's always ingrained in me that like you always want to learn, you always want to learn more, expose yourself to new things, new thinking, new perspective, and to keep up with the world is changing so quick now. You
yeah,
stop learning.
yeah.
There's a Chinese saying that goes, if you don't move forward, then you regress backward. Yeah. So
Mm.
yeah.
Constantly keeps taking a step forward. Don't
Yep.
stop. Yeah,
Yep.
that's really good.
Yep.
And find
So
fun in the process. I think that scares some people. I know people around me that if you tell them that you'll never really have it all solved and you'll always have questions that remain unanswered, people find that scary. I think they're like, "What? I want to be in a stage where I know everything. I know the answers." But you have to kind of find the almost the magic in that. No matter what position you are in life, there'll always be something you can discover.
yep.
And as humans, from the caveman times, our brains are programmed to always be learning something new and discovering. And we should always tap into that rather than being
Yep.
scared of not always being comfortable.
Yep. I agree 100%. It's very nice talking to you.
Yes,
Thank you
thank you,
so
Yvonne,
much
for
for
coming on
having
to the
me.
podcast.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you and your amazing shoe business?
So you can visit my website. It's www.yvonneliaonyc.com. That's where you could find my collection of shoes. And if you are ever in New York, you can also, go to my website, leave me a message, email me. And if you'd like to see my shoes in person, do that. And then I can meet you in person and show you my wonderful shoes. And we can talk about everything under the sun about shoes. Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Yvonne.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Krishna. Thank you so much for having me. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. Thank you.